If you are a paranormal researcher, or are just someone that is interested in paranormal things, you may have noticed a certain pattern. This pattern has to do with the correlation between sighting of lights, sometimes glowing orbs of differing sizes and colors, and a variety of cryptids, and other strange phenomena, that seem to plague certain geographical locations. These odd and strange areas, often called power spots or sacred ground, seem to be areas with high concentrations of some kind of electromagnetic-like energy. Those that visit these areas often report many strange things happening in these locations. The most prevalent of which seems to be witnessing light phenomena of all sorts. Some of these lights, for example, may take the form of glowing fog, or floating orbs made of light of varying intensity, that seem to be conscious, in that they do seem to react to those that witness them. These lights may follow people, change color, or seemingly display all sorts of weird behavior, that make those that witness them think that the lights are watching them, stalking them perhaps. And wherever these lights are seen on a regular basis, strange cryptids like Bigfoot, the Dogman, shadow people, and a variety of other strange creatures, are sometimes reported. And these creatures, by the way, can at times be as ethereal as wisps of smoke, or as ethereal as the lights that are often spotted around them, while at other times, they can seem to be quite physical enough at least to leave footprints, damage property, and destroy the flora of the areas where they are seen. Many have wondered what all this is about, and what relations all of these phenomena have in common. Certainly the correlation between strange lights, UFOs, and cryptids such as Bigfoot are very intriguing, and such a compelling mystery has its share of fascinating theories and ideas. While I do find these theories and ideas on what is going on very intriguing and thought-provoking, I would like to share an alchemist's view on this matter, as you may find that it may help to clarify your own thoughts and ideas, and help you to come to your own conclusions as to what may be going on. Now, from an alchemist's perspective, what is happening here is that there are many areas all over the planet that either project or can pool a great deal of life energy. This life energy has many properties, but the most relevant, in relation to this phenomena, is its ability to allow for the manifestation, which is really the transmutation, of what might be considered ethereal things, that is non-physical things or non-organic things, into more dense and physically perceivable substances. This pooling of energy, or this natural expulsion of energy by the planet in certain areas then, has the ability to make the ethereal real, and in certain times and locations, it has the ability to radiate such a powerful concentration of energy, that these ethereal things become not only perceivable by the human physical senses, but can also allow these formerly ethereal things to interact with this physical plane to some degree. What are these ethereal things that I mention, you may ask? Well, they are what alchemists and other occultists refer to as non-organic life. In other words, they are existent and very real life, aware life, sometimes even sentient life of all sorts and configurations, that unlike us, are not bound to a physical and therefore biological form. They exist without the need for a biological body. Normally these non-organic life forms, while prolific on this planet, are not seen and barely felt by most people. At most they may be experienced as odd winds, strange feelings, or fleeting shadows, and they do represent to some degree the great pantheon of mythical creatures and stories that can be found in human cultures all over the world. They are most often, though, just ethereal fantasy for us, but, in certain areas, where a great deal of life force is present, these non-organics come alive as it were, and can become far too real for some. You can think of it like this. Back in my younger days, my friends and I would like to take fluorescent lights, those big long tubes that flicker and glow, and we would watch how they would light up and glow without any electrical cords attached to them, when we walked under these really powerful power lines that were close to where we lived. So just from the intense energy released from the power lines, these fluorescent tubes would light up all on their own like magic. And as we walked away from under the power lines, these fluorescent tubes would go off again. To show you what I mean, I will leave a link to someone doing this in the video description below. So, one can think of non-organics and these power spots around the Earth in the same fashion. These non-organics are really everywhere on this Earth. There may be some around you now, but they are seldom if ever perceived by the average human being. In this way then, you could say that they are like fluorescent bulbs that while unlit, unpowered, exist like ghosts to us. They are ethereal and therefore unreal. But when these beings are around these power spots, or using the analogy, when these bulbs get close to high electric fields like low power lines, they begin to glow, and this glowing allows us to see them. Indeed, the amount of energy concentrated in some of these geographic locations, and therefore the glow from these bulbs, can be so intense, that we can at times not only see these ethereal creatures, but we can actually interact with them in the most physical way at times. These interactions, along with the fact that these power spots can also affect people by disorienting them and shifting their conscious states, can at times be very dangerous, sometimes even fatal to people, and this is why certain ancient cultures would treat such power areas with a great deal of cautious respect. Now, I am not saying that Bigfoot or aliens are not physically real. I am just saying that in accordance with alchemical knowing, some of these encounters may be of a different sort than some might suspect. I am saying that non-organic life and power spots are a very large and complicated wrinkle, that all paranormal investigators and hunters of cryptid beings should be conscious of. I hope that this theory, which I must point out is considered an energetic fact by alchemists, on the relation between power spots, glowing sentient lights, Bigfoot, and other cryptids, may help to explain some of the very peculiar phenomena experienced on certain occasions by certain witnesses, and it may even help to identify the source behind some of the people that go missing in certain areas. I say that it is a complicated wrinkle, because there are many facets to this phenomena that must be considered. For example, a mist may become a glowing orb of light, and that orb may become a flying saucer, a Bigfoot, a Mothman, or whatever mythical thing the witness may be vulnerable to psychologically. The reason for these astounding transformations in shape and type of experience have many factors, not just the witness's psychology, and not the least of which, as I mentioned, being how much accumulated energy may be present in a particular location. The energy levels in these power spots are not constant. There are cycles and there are external factors such as sunspots, the phases of the moon, and many other things that affect these quantities, and the kind of effect that these energies may have on non-organics and on human beings. As a factor to what may be witnessed, one must also consider the shifts in consciousness states that people do, and will, experience under such high concentrations of energy, and it must also be noted that certain more powerful non-organic life, of which there are a myriad of different types, can alter human perceptions, which means that these more complex non-organic entities can make a person see, and to some extent experience, what they want them to see and experience. It is also most important to note that most non-organic life is quite indifferent to humanity, and may even try at all costs to get away from people. But there are certain others that can be said to be predatory, in that they do seek to frighten and cause as much emotional distress as possible in people, because they find this large emotional output by people highly invigorating. And such predatory life has a tendency to seek out and congregate in these power spots around the Earth. And finally, to add more to the mix, I feel that I must point out that non-organics are not the last of it, and are not the only cause, even though in most occasions the major cause of the myriad of experience is possible in areas with a high amount of life force. There are also thought forms, which are in the most basic sense, thoughts that have been given form through strong focus of attention, usually through intense emotion. These varied thought form entities can also materialize in these power spots, and can bring added complications. I think it is best to seriously entertain the idea that this planet of ours is not as concrete and solid as most would imagine, and that in actuality it is a world made of varying degrees of material, or in this respect, non-material compositions. And that this world also has meridians of energy and polarities of energy very much like the human body, and it is in these power centers across the globe, where you will be most likely to witness the many varied states of material essence, and the vast forms of sentient life, that cannot be said to be organic in nature. If you would like to delve deeper into this subject, and into personal self-defense techniques that try to incorporate these energy systems, then I recommend the book, The Vampire's Way to Psychic Self-Defense, or the trilogy that directly deals with thought forms, and the line between matter and non-matter. Create a Servitor. Create a Servitor companion, and manifest wealth and prosperity with thought forms and servitors. I will leave a link to these books in the video description below.